So what do you think? Do you think there's going to be a catalyst, or is it just the economy sort of bounces back? Like, what about if we have a recession in 24?
Yeah, I think if we have some sort of recession where unemployment goes up substantially, that could be
Right.
bad. But I think at the end of the day, it's very important for folks to understand like how bad the consumer really got hit, over the last 2 years with real wages. We finally actually have real wages starting to increase in the United States again for the first time. And it's very minimal, so a lot of people aren't feeling it yet, but it has started to go up rather than go down. We had real wages going down for years, and we had such an increase in real wages from 2015 to right before Rona. I mean, it was extraordinary, the increase in real wages we had for years. And so I think they've really been affected by that negatively. And I think a lot of companies have been affected by even companies like Nike and Foot Locker and stocks that, you wouldn't even think are that risky, or have been just very negatively hit. My belief is the consumer gets in a better place because inflation's starting to finally take a back seat. Wages seem to be still going up, which I think is going to be helpful to the consumer. I don't know how helpful it is to businesses or companies. You look at what's going on with the United Auto Workers Union, you look what's going on with UPS recently. So we'll see where all things shake out. But if anything, I expect the consumer to be in a much better place in 24, regardless if a recession or not, but in a better place in 24 than they were certainly in 23 this year or even in 22. So. But we'll see.
So just on a macro, you're bullish in terms of a bounce back in 24. I mean, I know that right now the market front runs the economy by quite a bit. And so we're looking at a Fed pause and even a Fed rate cut towards mid 24, let's say. And the market is we'll see what CPI comes in. I think it's tomorrow. But essentially, if the Fed pauses towards the end of the year, I mean, they have to project more hawkish than they really are just because they can't project dovish because then people will go wild. So I understand the game, but if they pause towards the end of the year, it's clear skies from an uncertainty perspective for the market. I just don't know how telling that is of the underlying economy and the corresponding earnings reports of some of these companies.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's a funky time, and that's why I'm hedging going into 2024 because I see a lot of different scenarios. I see a scenario where the consumer gets in a much better place and things are good in 24. I see a scenario where we have an actual recession in 24 and the Fed lags finally catch up with us in a substantial way. So it's been one of the hardest times to judge macroeconomics, I think, in history. And the main reason because of the stimulus. I mean, we never seen the government pump money like that ever. And then on top of that, you add on the reopening of the economy and how much of a benefit that was, that for several years, as you obviously got a lot of those jobs back in leisure, hospitality, and industries like that. So it's a really hard time to forecast, I got to say. That's why I'm going into 24 hedged, and we'll see where things shake out. But
talk to me about your hedge a little bit.
Yeah, so I got a few different hedging strategies, but usually I'm trying to hedge thinking what stocks would get really hit hard if the market gets hit really hard and the economy simultaneously gets hit really hard. I have Apple hedge on right now, puts on Apple from a few different strike prices that expire in 2024. I have some Toll Brothers ones because Toll Brothers is a stock that when the stock market gets hit, Toll Brothers gets hit hard. It's the stock that recently hit all-time highs. I was looking at that and I just thought that was a pretty attractive opportunity. If the stock market gets hit in any major way, essentially Toll Brothers customer base starts pulling back huge because they have a higher end clientele base. They usually sell homes that are $1 million plus. So there's just a massive pullback there. I have one on Polaris. Polaris is a stock that some people might know or not know, but it's basically a fun company. You buy ATVs from them and snowmobiles and all types of fun stuff. And certainly with interest rates, and a lot of people buy those on loans, with interest rates going up, don't matter what happens, there's a pullback going on for a company like that. But if you're talking about unemployment going up or recession worries, that sort of company gets hit. So I have a few different ones other than that as well, but those are some of the ones that come to mind just in case. And a little hedging can go a long way done properly because, man, obviously when you're executing on things that are like 1 year out put options, I mean, if things got really bad, the increase on those put options can be 3x, 5x, 10x in a pretty quick amount of time. Hopefully they all expire worthless because that'll be my stocks are likely doing well. If they made a bunch of money, that means things got ugly. So.
You mentioned the hedge with Apple puts. How underwhelmed are you by the Apple event earlier today?
I was exactly what I was expecting. Exactly what I was expecting. Yeah. The one thing that scared me is that pink iPhone, man. That might be the hit. That might screw my Apple puts right there, man. The
Dude,
Barbie iPhone.
so I have a very good friend actually, and he also bought Apple puts, and I was just like, really, Apple puts? I didn't see it. And then I saw this thing circulating on X where it showed foot traffic somewhere in Asia, and it was the Huawei store, chock full. Right across was the Apple store, literally not a single soul. And
Wow.
yeah, I'll send it to you if I can
Oh
find
my,
it after this. But
see that.
I sent that to him, and I was like, okay, maybe puts are a really good idea on Apple.
Yeah.
I mean, look, Apple's been the biggest buyer of Apple stock for the last couple of years, so that
Yeah.
now that stock has been going up.
Yeah, you can't expect Apple to tank too hard. It's one of those
Yeah,
stocks, maybe it goes down 20, 30% if we get some sort of market pullback and also their numbers aren't too exciting, which I don't expect them to be very exciting. But yeah, it's one of those that is hard to get down 50% now because you got the Buffett put on the stock, right? Where Buffett holds so many shares and he doesn't seem like he's interested in selling at all. And then you got Apple always buying back so many shares.
yeah.
So yeah, it creates not the best dynamic for huge downside. We'll see how it all shakes out. So far, it's going really well, but you never know.
Yeah, I think yeah, I mean, even today, I think it went down like 2% plus or something like that. I wasn't following too closely, but I
Yeah.
know it went down from that event. What are your thoughts on the new the Apple competitor to the Quest? What are they called? Vision Pros, something like that?
Yeah. I think they went way too high with the price point. And I spoke about this when it first came out, but they basically did like the opposite of what Steve Jobs used to like to do, where Steve Jobs would usually come out with something lower price point that the
Mhm.
masses could afford and then get as many developers as possible on it to develop. Whereas Apple's kind of gone with an interesting different technique here where they're going super high end.
Right.
But the problem is, how many people are going to be able to buy that nearly $4,000 device and are going to be willing to part with that money for something that I think a lot of people view as not a need versus Meta's approach is let's sell something at $300 or $400, $500. The masses can afford it. And let's get a lot of people using these. Let's get 15 million, 20 million, 30 million. So we'll see whose approach works better over time. But
I mean, to
yeah,
push back or to present the counter argument, like I think the target audience is different. The Apple device, I think, is more geared towards developers to start building software on those devices. Probably what you'll see is next year you'll get a mid-market comparable. But
mm,
after that, you've already had like an app store, you already have software that's being built. And if I'm a software developer, then I don't care if it's $4,000. It's my company that's going to be buying it because I'm
yeah.
building it.
That's a good point. That's a good point. At some point, Apple's gonna have to go to a more affordable price point. Like this just,
Absolutely.
and especially with those new technology, because the folks that really make new technology cool is young people. People under 30 for the most part. If we think about who were all the people that were using iPhone in the early days and iPad, it was
Right.
high school kids and college kids and just younger folks in general. Like business professionals thought iPhone was a joke.
BlackBerry. Yeah,
Yeah,
BlackBerry.
yeah. So, yeah, that's where it's going to be really interesting to see when Apple pivots to attract the younger folks. Cause I'm just like, it seems like Meta's got a better approach to attract people that are younger because the price point alone is just such a substantial difference. So,
I want to just touch on one other aspect of something that you said earlier. You talked about just the Fed pumping into the economy and what's that done, for inflation and just the unwanted byproducts that we're seeing now or we're paying the consequences now. What's your stance on Bitcoin in general as a result of that?
yeah, my stance on Bitcoin is I feel like Bitcoin's a little bit in no man's land right now. It's in a little bit of a lost state, is the best way I could put Bitcoin right now. Because, I mean, the talk for Bitcoin for years was this is what we're going to use to transact. And it just hasn't come to fruition or even remotely close, right?
Right.
Then it's a store of wealth. And obviously, it hasn't been a very good store of wealth, right? That's why I feel like Bitcoin's just kind of lost right now. I know they're trying to get some, I believe, some ETFs passed. We'll
Yeah.
see what happens with that. But yeah, I feel like Bitcoin's just in complete no man's land. Obviously, I mean, how many crypto exchanges went down last year? That was not obviously good. That
Yeah.
is just kind of bearish for the whole crypto industry after going through that situation. So yeah, that's kind of my opinion on Bitcoin right now is it's just kind of in no man's land and it might be there for a little bit in terms of just, floundering around in 20K to 30K. That
Mhm.
might just be the situation for a bit until there's some sort of new major catalyst that kind of gets it out of that.
You don't own any crypto, right?
I used to until all those damn crypto exchanges went down and I lost all my money. So
No way.
no, as of right now, no, because yeah, unfortunately.
Wow. I did not know that. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah,
That sucks.
well,
Um,
happens. Yeah.
it's like rule number one, man. Keep it in your own wallet.
Yeah, I know. And a lot of us learned that hard, man. The amount of people
Yeah.
I know that lost significant portions of their net wealth, friends of mine and whatnot. Geez, crazy, crazy. And there was a lot of people kind of giving crypto a chance. Like, I've never been the biggest crypto person. I think everybody knows that, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of gave it a chance. And then all of a sudden, all those crypto companies are going down left and right. And it's just like, yeah, it's just not a good look. It's no different than people giving the stock market a chance and like Robinhood fails and Fidelity fails and TD Ameritrade. And people are like, what the hell, man? Yeah, that's going to be something that weighs on crypto for years. It's not like that's magically going to erase from people's minds. It's going to be there for years.
Is crypto something you'd be willing to give another chance to in the future?
Potentially, but no time soon. That's the thing.
Yeah,
No
I
time
think
soon.
that's very fair.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of those things. It's like when you finally gave something a chance, and then it treats you like that. It's like, yeah. I don't know. We'll see. But I think the biggest thing with crypto is you got to see it in the real world. Once you see these
Yeah.
things, that's the great thing with stocks and with actual companies.
Yeah.
You see it in the real world. If you like SoFi, you can go experience SoFi now. I remember specifically, this is like 2021. I remember being in the gym with Graham one day, and we were talking about fintech, and he was telling me about some private company's valuation. And I just remember telling him, like, fintech is the biggest bubble. It's the biggest freaking bubble, because they were valuing, oh gosh, like you could get I think they were valuing at each user being worth $100 or $1,000 or some crazy amount. Maybe it's $500. And I'm like, this is stupid. And it's crazy, because I wish I would have placed some short bets on everything fintech, because literally everything would have printed money. But the bubble's popped now. It's over. And so in regards to PayPal, Square, Robinhood, everything, SoFi, it's already popped. And so the good news is now for these companies is I think there's definitely there's not like that scariness, in my opinion, anymore now at this point in time of like, oh man, these stocks going to go down 50, 60, 70%.
Right.
Like there certainly was years ago. Now it's just a question of like, is it dead money for a bit, or is it, a time period where we're going to start going back up? So,
And that's a lesson that I've sort of learned through osmosis of being in the market now for like 6 years, that a lot of times the hype will really front run whatever the execution is or the implementation, let's say, even if it is fintech, even if it is crypto, even if it is AI, like there's always going to be a hype bubble. And then a period of time, which is like this, lull or chasm, let's say, and then the actual time when it gets implemented and you actually start to see the fruit from that initial hype, right? So like, oh, metaverse is coming. You're actually going to be able to go into this virtual reality, blah, blah, blah. That might be the case in 10 years, but Facebook changed their name like 2 years ago because of it.
yeah.
Last sort of topic that I wanted to cover is the last stock that we share, Corsair. Definitely one of my favorite names, just from a product perspective. I have a couple of their gear right now. I have the Stream Deck right here. But I mean, look, the stock hasn't been really doing all that much. It is a hardware play. It is something that benefited quite a bit from COVID. I mean, everybody was decking out their work from home setups. It's something that is seasonal. Holiday is their biggest season. What's your take on them?
Yeah, Corsair's okay. It's not the company I thought it was when I first got into it. I think now at this point in time, it's a very attractive risk reward. I think it'd be a good stock over time. Is it some stock that has massive upside? I don't really see it unless they have some sort of game-changing product. It's just a company that's going to put up good numbers. I think they should be profitable every single year moving forward, and very substantially profitable. Great products, obviously. I mean, I've never really heard anybody say bad stuff about Corsair's products. They're just a tremendous company. They execute. Unfortunately, they had that huge pull forward. The good news is we don't have to deal with that anymore. Like, those numbers are all in the past. There's no such thing as a pull forward anymore. And so I think the company should be able to get back to nice, consistent growth in top and bottom line. And I think that will be very helpful for the valuation of the company as well, that people can be confident that they're going to grow in a certain range. But yeah, it's just kind of like one of those stocks I hold that it's just kind of like, meh, I think it'll be fine over the next few years. But it's not one of those that really gets me super excited. Let's just call it that.
So you're not a buyer, you're not a seller, you're just hold right now.
Yeah, right now with Corsair, it's pretty much just a hold. if I think about this, my favorite stocks to buy right now, yeah, unfortunately it's not up there. It's a tough one though. I'm trying to like see how they ever command a bigger valuation in terms of PE ratio, because they just seem to be stuck in kind of like hardware space. It seems like, and if they ever want to really command a much bigger valuation, they're going to have to get into software in a much greater extent. It just doesn't seem like they really have it to get into software in any substantial way. Yeah, it just seems like they'll always kind of be one of those companies that trades at a forward P of, let's call it 12 to maybe 18, somewhere in there.
Yeah, and at a high level, I think that's fine. You nailed it. I think growth had been pulled forward and growth rates have fallen. They're recovering now as of the latest quarters. Average selling prices are rising for their products. They're sustainably profitable. They're paying down their debt.
Yeah.
Their margins, there's hardware margins, but they're also increasing steadily over time. They're the biggest market player in PC gaming. So it's really, if you believe that PC gaming is going to be on the rise, and overall, if you believe that there's going to be more gaming titles in 2024, and if that space is going to see a massive expansion as well. I mean, that could be the only sort of macro tailwind that I could see for Corsair, but what you see is what you get with the business. There's the options contract for innovation, I would say, is fairly low compared to some of these other names.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, certainly whatever Apple does and whatever Meta does, I think my personal opinion is Meta Quest 3 should be fairly popular. I think it'll be much more popular in the second generation. So I think that's a potential competitive threat maybe to Corsair over time is VR gaming. But obviously they can create things and get in that space in some sort of way, in some sort of fashion, if that expands. So they'll figure out a way. Andy Paul led that company for, 100 years now. He always found a way to, find new products and services that they can provide to the marketplace. So I'm sure he would figure out something.